11.1, classifying solids. So just a reminder, classifying means that you're naming something, okay? So classifying means you're naming something. So the first one we're going to talk about is prisms. Okay, so I have a lot of prisms over here. I'll pass them around. Prisms, okay, these are all prisms. Be careful with this one. Have rectangular sides to it. So all of these prisms have sides that are rectangles, and then they have a very specific base to them. Okay? So these are all prisms. Please pass them back so that the people behind you can see them. Okay? So those are all prisms. They have more rectangular sides than any other shape in the figure. So a prism has more rectangular sides than any other shape. So more rectangular sides than other shapes. Now, the most common prism that people get wrong is the triangular prism. Okay, so the triangular prism, it looks like a tent. So remember that if it looks like a tent, it's a prism. So you might want to add that in. Put prism, put a tent in there, because this is the one people get wrong. Okay, if it looks like a tent, it's a prism. And the reason this is a prism is because it has 3 rectangular sides and 2 triangular sides. Okay, so it has more rectangles for sides than any other shape. 3 rectangles to 2 the triangles. Do you guys see why people maybe get that one wrong? Yeah, they sometimes think it's a pyramid. It's not a pyramid because there's more rectangles than there are triangles. Okay? So, maybe put a star. A tent is a prism. Next, we have pyramids. So prisms have rectangular sides. What kind of sides do pyramids have? Triangular. Okay, so this would be a triangular pyramid because it has more triangles for sides than any other shape. Okay, same thing with this one. There's more triangles than other shapes. So we'll pass some of those around. Careful of the insides. Okay, so those are all pyramids that I just passed around. Okay? So, pyramids have more triangles than other shapes. More triangles than other shapes. Okay? All of the sides in it are triangles, and then it'll have one base that is a different shape. Next, we're going to talk about cones. Okay? So this is a cone. In a cone, it kind of looks like a pyramid, right? It's a pyramid with what shape for its base? Circle. So a cone, okay, has a circular base. It has one of them, correct? So a cone has one circular base. Okay, pass those around. I don't have as many cones as I do the other shapes. Okay, so those are cones. All right. A cylinder has how many? 2 circular bases. Okay, so the most famous one is like soup cans are typically cylinders. Here are those. Okay? So those are all cylinders. They're coming back now. Okay? Questions on cylinders? Now, the other two, and I don't have enough of these to pass them around, so I'm just going to hold them up. We have a sphere, which is a ball. Okay, so you can see I have a baseball here. And then we have hemispheres. So hemispheres is how much of a sphere? Half. Okay, so this is a hemisphere, and this is a sphere. Okay. So a hemisphere is half of a sphere. And then obviously a sphere is a ball shape. Now, these bottom four just have their name. Okay, so this is just a hemisphere. There's no other part to it. This is just a sphere. There's no other part to the name. Cones are just cones. Cylinders are just cylinders. There's no special part to their name. But with prisms and pyramids, we can label them more specifically. And so we do that like this. We first decide if it's a prism, pyramid, cylinder, or cone. Okay? Then you determine the base if it's a prism or a pyramid. So if you get a prism or a pyramid, you have to decide on the base. The base is the side that appears the least. Okay? Then you give the base name, which is here in this third column, and the type of solid. So the type of solid is calling it a prism or a pyramid. Okay, so I'm going to hold some up. Okay, what kind of shape is this? It's a prism. What kind of prism? It's a triangular prism because it has two triangles, it has three rectangles, so the triangles appear the least, so it's a triangular prism. Does that make sense? Back here, I know the pyramids usually have a lot better ones. Here we go. This one, what shape is the bottom? This one's an octagon, so it's an octagonal pyramid. Does that make sense? This one is a hexagonal pyramid. So only with pyramids and prisms do you add that extra piece where you describe it a little bit more. So let's do this first one. What shape is that? That one's a cylinder. Okay, remember cylinders just are cylinder. Cones are just cones. Spheres are spheres. Hemispheres are hemispheres. They just have the one name. Okay. This next one is it a pyramid or a prism? Prism. And it has 7 sides. So it would be a heptagonal prism. Okay, so it has 7 sides. If you count the sides, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's a heptagonal prism. This next one has 8 sides. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what is it? Octagonal pyramid, right? The last one looks like a tent. A tent is a prism. So this is a prism. The base is the 2 triangles. So it's a triangular prism. Every year, that's the most common one to get wrong. Okay? But tell yourself, it's a tent, it's a triangular prism. Tent is a triangular prism. So, after you do that, and you'll have noticed this with quite a few of the shapes, is it'll also have you do it with what we call nets. So a net is when you take a 3-dimensional shape and flatten it out. So you might have noticed this with some of these. So this is a rectangular prism. And then the net, when you flatten it out, looks like that. Okay? So net is when you take a 3D shape and you flatten it out. Okay? So the same is true Anyone know where the octagonal prism went to? It's yellow. Mason has it. So this, when it gets broken down, okay, so there it says octagonal, and then gets broken down. Do you see how all those rectangles it has? Okay, so it's an octagonal, or no, hexagonal prism, right? Okay, so those are nets. It's when they get broken down. So let's do that first net that is pink. Is that going to be a prism, a pyramid, a cylinder, or a cone? It's a prism, and what kind of prism is it? Rectangular. So it's a rectangular prism. This next prism, this one in orange here, actually has a special name. When all of your sides are squares, what's the special name for it? It's a cube. So when all of your sides are squares, we call it a cube. If you called it a rectangular prism, I wouldn't count it wrong, but more specifically, it's a cube. Okay, so let's talk about this green one. The green one, what is that? It's a pyramid, and what's its base? It's a square, right? So that's a square pyramid. What's the next one? It's a cylinder. Okay, it's a cylinder because it has two circles. If it only had one circle, what would it be? It'd be a cone. Good. And what about that last one? It would be a rectangular prism, right? Now this says 11.1 book. It's actually 11.1 worksheet, 1 through 24.